The A's actually won a series. They can now go for the sweep. Finish them.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's all year long. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and this is my sixth full season here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Normally, I am the host of Locked On MLB right down there, and I still host it 5 days a week, but I'm also giving you 5 days of Locked On A's for this whole, well, let's face it, very, very strange season that we're having in the East Bay. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Do you know it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help, from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. Always good to mess up the live reads. Yes, I haven't yet set up my studio where I'm going to be up here. So I am again in a conference room doing this podcast, thus my interesting background. It's kind of otherworldly. Older people may think it looks like, I don't know, something from Logan's Run or some 70s sci-fi thing. I don't know. It's behind me right now. But what's not behind us is the fact that the A's are winners. They won. They won last night. They beat the Kansas City Royals. And it was the kind of win that A's fans haven't had for a little bit. Do you know why? It's a win that wasn't really in doubt. I mean, it was 2-1, and yes, it was 2-1 going into the seventh. So of course, we've all known this A's team can blow any lead, anytime, anywhere. But the minute the A's made it 4-1 in the seventh inning, I felt pretty confident. They got the Rooker singled and Nevin singled, and all of a sudden it was 4-1. And the Royals, they threatened a couple of times, but they never ever got a big rally going. And I was watching the A's on TV last night, and when it was 5-1, and they're going to the ninth, and they brought in Miller, and there was some talk of, well, do you bring Miller in now? It's not a save situation. They have a day game after a night game. Maybe you have them completely fresh. I don't know about you. I don't always think it's a smart thing to manage to the save. I call that the tyranny of the save, because if you start making decisions based on, well, is this a save situation? It's not a save situation. Bringing Miller out was the best option to win the series and put them in a position where the Royals, in a day game after a night game, have to pull off a win. Otherwise, they're going to be swept in Oakland, which is after the disastrous road trip they had. And the Royals are indeed a contender. They do have images of a wild card or maybe a division title dancing their head, but they are slipping a little bit. And the Red Sox, I don't know if you've noticed this, the Red Sox are in a little bit of a roll. The Royals have been in a little bit of a slump, and the Red Sox are on the verge of overtaking either Kansas City or Minnesota. Kansas City's had a wonderful, they've been wonderful the first, I guess, third of the season, almost the first half. But remember, this was a team that lost 100 games last year. So to think that a team's going to go from 100 games to 100 losses to 90 wins, it's possible, of course. And the way they've been playing, it's fine. But if they come back down to earth, well, that could be a bad thing for them. And what you want to do is you want to put that seed of doubt in them. It became critical for the A's to win that game. Now, imagine this. Imagine they brought in another pitcher. Imagine they brought someone else in to pitch the ninth. And then that pitcher starts to flop and flounder. And then you quickly have to get Mason up. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at putting him in a very stressful situation where he comes in and has to save the day. Or you'll bring him in to start the ninth and you lock down a series win, something they haven't had for nearly a month. The last series win they had was like the May 20-something in that bizarro series against Colorado. Now, they're not in a, well, there's a rubber game. We win. It could bounce either way. No matter what, they're going to play. They're going to start. The A's Royals game starts in about 15 minutes from when I'm starting to record this right now. So lock it down. Have the series won. Play with house money for the final game. Go with the way that they were just horrifically playing, all the walk-off losses, all the blown leads, and a few by Mason Miller. To come in, come back home, and immediately win the series, you're worried about whether it's a save situation. I am reminded of the Far Side cartoon of a bunch of the three guys wandering through the desert. You see their tracks, they've been walking for miles and miles, and they get to a water fountain. And the guy at the front of the water fountain says, hey, let's let it run a little bit so it gets colder, as they're all dying of thirst. This is a team that just had a 9-game losing streak, and you're worried about whether it's a save situation. They could win the series, and they did. Now, and there's another factor, which is Lugo is pitching today for Kansas City. Now, Lugo has been a Cy Young contender so far, an unlikely Cy Young contender to be sure, but a Cy Young contender. There is a real chance the A's are going to lose today. There's a real chance Mason Miller could be reading Bazooka Joe comics in the bullpen by the time they get to the ninth inning, because they have the Royals could be up by a bunch. You had the chance to clinch a series. You did it. Don't care about the saves. We're beyond that. We're absolutely beyond that. And hey, let's give a shout out to the real star for the last month or so, this bad month. The best part about it has been Miguel Andujar. Miguel Andujar yesterday went 3 for 5, and he now has 10, count them, 10 multi-hit games with the A's. This was a waiver pickup. This was a really nice pickup by the A's, where they're able to get Andujar, or is it Andujar? I'm trying to remember how John Sterling would say it. Miguel Andujar. I hate mispronouncing names. I find few things as disrespectful as that. Miguel Andujar. Anyway, he has 10 multi-hit games with the A's. And he used to be a shortstop for the Yankees. Obviously, you're not going to play short, but last night, 3 for 5 and scored a run, drove in a run. And Geloff, we're going to bring Geloff up in the second segment as well. He had a good game. He homered, and that was an important thing. Geloff has been in a bit of a slump, so when you're seeing him produce, that's great. Rooker has been terrific. I think and I know that Rooker is probably good as gone come the trade deadline, because he's not a spring chicken, and a lot of teams could use right-handed power bat. But it's good, and they're going today. And worst case scenario, if they lose 23-0 or no hit, they still won the damn series. And you do more things like that, the better off you'll be. But we come back, I'm going to bring up Geloff and Rooker and Mason, and as this trade deadline is potentially approaching. And the fact of the matter is, we're bringing up those names, and it accentuates a major problem with the Oakland A's right now, and whether they're the Sacramento A's or the Las Vegas A's coming up. Because the fact of the matter is, they're in a position where if you want to rebuild, they don't even have a foundation. Here at Locked On A's, we pride ourselves in getting you the latest news for your Oakland A's, or whether they're Sacramento or Las Vegas or Portland or Nashville or New Orleans or wherever the hell they're going to play. We're going to be following them. What's the offseason, the draft, all the news of the potential stadiums, spring training, trade deadline. It's year-round. But do you know what else is year-round? Collection seasons. Just because the tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank account, seize your properties, not feed your dog. Don't let the IRS target you. Let licensed professionals and tax expert at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I work for a bunch of tech companies and media companies and contractors, and sometimes they pay in cash. Sometimes they pay in a 1099 where they don't take the taxes out. You can make a nice pile of money, but if you're not handling that correctly, come tax season, you're going to get a big punch to the face. So you need people like Tax Network USA. They have over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. They've saved their clients. Tax USA Network has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require planning, like my 1099s, or you finally hit that parlay and you need help correctly filing, you got to call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in the episode description below. Tax Network USA. Let's get it paid off, please. All right, we've gone from taxes. Let's go to death. Policygenius. I'm 52 years old. I'm approximately 1/3 done with my life. And I need to have the peace of mind in case something happens to me that I have life insurance to provide for my family. Policygenius is the nation's leading online marketplace for life insurance. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial security net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers found the best fit for their needs with Policygenius. Check life insurance off your to-do list with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or check the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Hey, what's your hub for sports news and takes? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program to bring you all the top stories of the day. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Hey, there's a lot of articles that I've been seeing about whether or not the A's should trade Mason Miller. And I do understand the logic behind it. I do, because I know the A's are not winning anything this year. Our hope. What is our hope? Our hope is that they avoid 100 losses, and their best and most consistent piece has been their bullpen closer, which relies Mason Miller's effectiveness relies on him pitching when they have the lead. And we have shown that the A's are not going to have the lead often this year. He's 25 years old, and it's tough to build a team around a bullpen closer. Bullpen closers flame out. There are some exceptions. Obviously, I just was at Cooperstown, and you see the plaques for Lee Smith and Trevor Hoffman and Mariano Rivera and Bruce Sutter and Raleigh Fingers and Dennis Eckersley and Hoyt Wilhelm, but those are the exceptions. Most of the time, if you have someone who's a great reliever, in a couple of years, they're no longer in the relief discussion. A lot of times there are people who are really great for a couple of years. We've seen a few in Oakland. Keith Folk was here briefly. Billy Koch. We all love Sean Doolittle. But Sean Doolittle was, basically between 2014 and 2019, in part in A's with the A's and with Washington. Look how fast someone like Koji Uehara, for a few years, he was fantastic. Then things fade off. Occasionally, Craig Kimbrell, goes along, but Bobby Jenks, Jonathan Papelbon, Rafael Soriano, these are players who, do really well and a lot of times flame out. It's not very reliable for a long-term situation with a closer. And Miller, who is a lights-out closer that we've all seen this year, could be really, really valuable for a team that's in pennant contention. And half of the National League is in pennant contention, and a big bunch of them could use bullpen help. So, yeah, they could get something big for him. They could get something for Blade. They could get something for Rooker. But I really think there's a deeper problem with the A's right now, and that is, who are they building around? Who are the players that are the foundational pieces to build around? Whether they're playing in Oakland or Sacramento or Vegas, wherever, they're promising Vegas they're going to put together a great team. Who are the building blocks? Seriously. You know, I was going into today, I looked at MLB.com, where they list the top 100 MLB prospects. They have 0 in the top 50. 0 in the top 50. They have 1 in the top 100. 1. Jacob Wilson, who they drafted last year or the year before, who's currently in rookie ball. He is the only prospect in the top 100. Now, not that that's a perfect metric, but when you look at who are the players you want to build around, the future superstars, when you pile up what there's 30 teams, okay? And you have the A's have had some pretty decent draft picks recently. You would think they would have a couple. The Orioles got a whole bunch of them. The A's have 1. 1. Now, it gets worse. For a team like the A's, you have to rely on the draft. You have to rely on the draft to build your team up through the farm system. Aren't the A's supposed to be smarter than everybody else? Well, let me tell you something. Between 2017 and now, a grand total of 1 first-round pick by the A's has played even a single game in the major leagues. 1. And that's Tyler Soderstrom. Nice player, but hardly the bedrock of part of a great foundation. In fact, if you go back the last 10 years, Soderstrom, Matt Chapman, and Addison Russell are the only first-round picks in the last decade who have amounted to anything in the major leagues. And Chapman is gone, and Addison Russell's a piece of human garbage. And, Soderstrom's on the A's right now. Is he the foundation? And I was looking at it, and yes, I understand the draft is not an exact science, but you can't miss year after year for a decade. They drafted Richie Martin in 2015. Austin Riley was still available then. Brian Hayes was still available then. Walker Buehler was still available then. Ryan Mountcastle was still available then. No. They drafted A.J. Puck, who was supposed to be great in 2016. The catcher, Will Smith, was still available then. So was Cole Reagan. So was Cal Quantrill. In 2017, they had 2 first-round draft picks, Austin Peck and Kevin Merrill. Neither one made it to the major leagues. Tanner Houck, Drew Rasmussen, Dalton Varsho were all available. Then in 2018, they drafted Kyler Murray, never played a game in the major leagues. Jonathan India, Nico Horner, Logan Gilbert, all available then. In 2019, they drafted Logan Davidson, who hasn't made it to the major leagues. Gunnar Henderson was available. Anthony Volpe was still available. And Max Muncy was their pick in 2021, who was still coming up. And they did, and to give them credit, they did draft Zach Geloff in the second round that year. But holy Toledo, this is a team that is so known for having no money that the Muddy Ball is named after them. So in this situation, you can't whiff in the draft. And I just listed off a bunch of years and a bunch of players who, if they were on the team, you would say, all right, well, we're going to try to build around, Gunnar Henderson. We're going to try to build around Dalton Varsho. We could maybe build around Jonathan India. Maybe we could build around Tanner Houck or Anthony Volpe. Someone. And all those years, they get someone who does, they drafted people who have no impact on the major league level. I know it's not an exact science, but holy cow, you got to do better than blindfolding and throwing an axe, which is what they've done. And so let's throw a big pile of blame on the scouting department and the front office for whiffing big time for a decade. There are many reasons why the A's are in this position. Fisher is obviously the main reason because he has made no attempt to improve the situation, spend money on the team, improve the stadium. He's lied. He's a horrible person. We all know that. The fact that the stadium has been ruined by the arrival and leaving of the Raiders was also no small part of it. And a culture of knowing that, hey, don't get too used to these players because we're going to ship them out the minute they ask for more than minimum wage is a part of it. But whiffing on the draft, there's the fact of the matter is when they've had so many down seasons, and I know they had some good seasons recently, but they've had so many down seasons and that there's nothing on the farm system. One player in their entire farm system is worthy of being mentioned in the top 100, and he's on rookie ball, and none in the top 50. There should be 2 or 3 players coming up through the pipeline who are in the top 50. You say, okay, well, hey, he's the batter we're going to – who's the big hitter that they're going to build around? Who's the slick infielder they're going to build around? Who's the ace pitcher they're going to build around? They just have Mason Miller. So maybe they should trade him. Maybe they'll get a piece because there's nothing in the farm right now. There's no great piece to build around. There's no budding MVP coming up, and that, I believe, is one of the single most underrated elements of why the A's are currently in this predicament. When we come back, we're going to talk about a member of the A's you may not have heard of, but whose name should be coming up based on the celebration we're going to have tonight. I am clearly a fashion plate. Look at the shirt I'm wearing right now. Look at it. It's got a little zipper on it. That's hot. That's hot. But do you know what? I sometimes need help to give myself some fashion advice because it doesn't come naturally to me. And I got a great confidence. When you're wearing something that makes you look good, it's flattering on you. Do you know what? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. You have the best people, a stylist. You give them your size, your style, your budget preference. I order boxes when I want, how I want, no subscriptions required. And then they send 5 just for me pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling events. I keep what works. I send the rest back. They just send the right piece. I don't know. It's like they got ESP. It's like they're Jedi. It's like they're warlocks. I don't get it. I don't know how they do it. They just get me. And they get the stuff that is flattering to me. They make it so easy. I don't like to shop for clothes. And they save me that time and effort. Plus, I get outfits that make me look and feel really good. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchange are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Now is the best time to get started on Stitch Fix. Go to stitchfix.com/MLB. Get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. Go to stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not involve kids' fixes. Stitch Fix. Let's look good. Hey, this is a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's now available on the Amazon Fire channel app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with Locked On experts, for the local shows and national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the Free Fire TV channel app. Yeah, we're doing it live here today. Hey, Gravity Fallout Pines, who listens to us every day, says, the last 2 games have been encouraging. Watch the kids play. I'm curious what the second half record ends up looking like. Gravity Fallout Pines, it's a good point. But and I know this team is going to be making deals. And that means that they're essentially be playing a minor league team the last 2 months because Rooker is gone. We all know that. I think Miller is going to be gone. And maybe Andujar is going to be gone, because he's no spring chicken and maybe he could help a contender. And, maybe Blade. I mean, I don't want to see everyone go because I like a lot of the players on this team, but this team is going to be gone, and they're not contending. And as I just said, the cupboard is bare in the farm system too. So we'll have to see. The name, a lot of times I bet you didn't know they played on the A's here. Well, I bet you didn't know this person whose name was Bob Trice. The reason I'm bringing up Bob Trice is as we're celebrating, we have the game in Birmingham today. We had the death of Willie Mays the other day, and there's a lot of attention being played to the history of the Negro Leagues and the combination of the stats recently. A lot of times the players who broke the color barrier for a team is a well-known figure, like a Larry Doby, like obviously Jackie Robinson. And sometimes it's someone a little more obscure. And with the A's, the answer to the question of who broke the color barrier for the A's, the answer was Bob Trice. And Bob Trice did so for the Philadelphia A's. In fact, he broke the color barrier in Philadelphia. The A's had an African-American player before the Philadelphia Phillies did. In fact, they had him several years before because Trice played 2 years as a member of the Philadelphia A's and then played for the Kansas City A's. Meanwhile, the A's had long gone to Kansas City when Kennedy became the first Phillies player to break the color barrier. It's kind of like people remember Pumpsie Green was the first Red Sox player to break the color barrier. However, the color barrier in Boston had long been broken by the Boston Braves, Sam Jethro. So Bob Trice was a pitcher, and he was a Georgia native. He was raised in West Virginia, and he played in the Negro Leagues, including the 1948 Negro League champion Homestead Grays. He played alongside Buck Leonard, a Hall of Famer, and future Major League Baseball star Luke Easter. And he was signed by the Philadelphia A's, and on September 13th, 1953, Bob Trice was the starting pitcher and broke the color barrier for the Philadelphia A's. He pitched game one of a doubleheader against the St. Louis Browns. Yeah, that's how long ago this was. You had the Philadelphia A's and St. Louis Browns. He lost the game. He went 8 innings. He allowed 5 runs. By the way, the Browns pitcher who won that game was Don Larson. Don Larson, who went on to throw the perfect game in the 1956 World Series. Don Larson, by the way, was a journeyman pitcher who bounced around and was the Yankees' number 3 or 4 starter in that World Series, who just happened to throw a perfect game in the World Series. But I digress. He did win his last 2 games in 1953, including throwing a complete game victory to end the season with an 11-2 victory over the Washington Senators. He pitched 3 years in the majors. He on April 24th, 1954, he had a complete game shutout of the New York Yankees, and he struck out Mickey Mantle twice. So he passed away about 20 years ago or so. But if the question comes up, who was the first African-American player in the history of the A's, you have to go all the way back to the Philadelphia A's and Bob Trice. Is he a superstar? No. But there were many, many players who were left out, and we don't know who would have been the superstar, the role player, the terrific middle reliever, that player who didn't have the best stats but became beloved by the fan base. We don't know who was going to be who. We tend to remember the superstars and the Hall of Famers, but there's a whole bunch of players who could have been beloved members of any team, including the A's. Maybe all those years where Connie Mack had the A's in dead last place, losing hundreds of games, maybe they could have opened the door a little bit sooner, and you could have seen some more winning A's teams in Philadelphia. Then again, if that were the case, chances are the A's would stay in Philadelphia, and we'd be talking about what's going to happen with the Oakland Phillies. But, hey, we got an A's game going today. In fact, the A's game is going to start in just like 2 minutes. So let's see if the A's can finish the sweep. So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter, whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Praising the A's for winning a series, criticizing the management for drafting poorly, and giving Bob Trice his due. This has been Locked On A's for the 20th day of June 2024. Tomorrow's the longest day of the year. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.